Canada, endless expanses, mountains, deep forests, and tranquility. While many of you would probably prefer a beach vacation, for 70-year-old Stephanie Stewart, this is the perfect summer. But vacation or even retirement are out of the question for Stephanie. She lives for her work. Every summer, she spends her time in a lookout tower, making sure that no fires start anywhere. She particularly likes the seclusion and tranquility of her work. Stephanie is no stranger to loneliness, but is she really alone in the forest? Or is it true that every step she takes is being watched, and she is unaware that an unknown danger lurks in the woods? These are the suspicions of the other rangers when one day she fails to report in to them. However, their concern seems unfounded when they are able to reach Stephanie on her radio. But at the other end of the line, they don't hear her friendly voice but heavy breathing before the call, and thus all contact with Stephanie breaks off. All that remains is silence and the question of what happened to Stephanie Stewart. In Canada alone, over 8,000 wildfires occur every year. The extensive forest areas are often difficult to survey, and sometimes a small flame is enough to start a devastating fire in summer. To best prevent this risk, Canada has built numerous fire lookout towers where so-called fire watchers can monitor the area. These watchtowers are often located on mountaintops or other elevated sites, and consist of a cabin from which the fire watchers can observe the surrounding area and detect smoke early on. They are also responsible for reporting weather changes and monitoring lightning strikes. There are 128 fire watch towers in the Canadian province of Alberta alone. Athabasca Tower is one of the most important of these. A small mining town is located in the immediate vicinity and relies heavily on the tower's protection, since a nearby fire could quickly destroy the entire town. That's why it's so important to have a capable and dedicated fire lookout who takes their job seriously. However, finding such people is often difficult. The fire watchers usually only have radio contact with other fire watchers and the control center. They work alone in their watchtowers in the middle of the forest, which can make the work very lonely. Some of them spend many weeks in complete isolation, while constantly keeping a watchful eye on their surroundings. This aspect deters many potential applicants. The Alberta government is therefore very happy that they have had a hard-working and dedicated employee in charge of the Athabasca Tower for many years. Stephanie Stewart will be 70 years old in 2006. She has been working as a fire lookout every summer for the past 18 years and has been responsible for the Athabasca Tower for the past 13 years. Stephanie loves the lookout tower. It is surrounded by forest and has an impressive view because it is very close to Jasper National Park. The tower stands on a ridge in northwestern Alberta, about 40 kilometers northeast of the small town of Hinton. There is only one road leading to the lookout tower. There is a simple hut at the base of the Athabasca Tower where the fire watchers can live. The tower itself is almost 30 meters high and can only be reached by a ladder, which has to be climbed several times a day. But that doesn't stop Stephanie Stewart, even at the age of 70, from doing her job reliably every day. She wouldn't dream of leading a quieter life or even retiring. The Canadian grew up in the small former mining town of Kenmore, about 80 kilometers from Calgary. At just 1.56 meters tall, Stephanie doesn't look particularly intimidating and is quickly underestimated by those around her. Her adult daughter Lori describes her as a strong woman who always knew what she wanted. She loved her job as a fire lookout. Mom is an amazing woman. She's very strong, she's very talented. Life in the tower is her life. Stephanie is very active. In December 2005, at the age of 69, she climbed Kilimanjaro, a 5,800-meter high mountain in Tanzania, with her friend, daughter, and son-in-law. When she is not working as a fire lookout, she travels a lot, tends to her huge garden at home, or paints pictures. She even rode her bike across Canada by herself. Her family describes Stephanie as a phenomenal woman who has read reams of books and always had to be doing something. They also mention her extraordinary reliability. And for precisely this reason, Stephanie's base was surprised when, on August 26, 2006, the 70-year-old did not report in the morning for the first time. Every fire guard has to report in the morning to confirm that they are okay and to go over the current weather. When Stephanie did not report in on that Saturday morning, the base decided to call her. In all the years that Stephanie has been working as a fire lookout, she has never missed a call. This time, too, she quickly accepts the call. The staff at the base are initially relieved to have reached her, but their concern quickly increases again when they don't hear Stephanie's friendly voice at the other end of the line, but only heavy breathing. A short time later, the call breaks up and Stephanie's radio is disconnected from the circuit. No one knows exactly what is going on, but all the employees agree that something terrible must have happened to Stephanie Stewart. An employee is sent to Athabasca Tower to check on her. When he arrives, everything appears normal at first glance. It is a sunny morning. Stephanie's pickup truck is parked outside the cabin and there is no indication that anything might have happened to her. Inside the cabin, however, the situation is different. There is no sign of Stephanie. A pot of water is boiling on the stove at the highest setting, apparently already for so long that the water has almost completely evaporated and the whole room has already heated up. There is blood on the stairs leading to the hut, some of which is smeared. The employee immediately notifies the police and reports Stephanie missing. When the officers take a closer look at the cabin, they notice that a burgundy bedsheet, a blanket with a Navajo pattern, 2 pillows with blue covers, and her gold wristwatch are missing from her room. Initially, the investigators considered an animal attack, for example by a brown bear. But with the new findings, they now almost completely rule it out. The night before, Stephanie had spoken to her daughter on the phone. During the call, she seemed fine and did not report any problems or worries. She also did not appear stressed and did not mention that she was planning to leave the tower. A large-scale search for Stephanie begins. Many volunteers participate in the search efforts. The area covered by the search on foot quickly expands to 7 square kilometers, making it one of the largest searches in the province's history. In addition, aircraft search over 7,500 square kilometers for traces of Stephanie. The search continues until the end of October and then has to be terminated due to the onset of winter. The investigators are faced with a major mystery. If Stephanie had been attacked by an animal, the animal would most likely have left traces or footprints. Besides, there are only a few wolves and bears in the area, and they usually do not attack people just like that. Some sources claim that animal tracks and hair were found in the area, but this has never been officially confirmed, and the police still say that these finds did not exist. There is also no evidence that Stephanie might have had mental health issues or had an accident. Nevertheless, the theory arises that she might have injured herself and, in shock, went out into the forest in a confused state. But that is also very unlikely. Stephanie could have taken her car or called for help over the radio. On the other hand, people in shock sometimes act completely irrationally, so that this option cannot be completely ruled out. But little by little, it becomes more and more likely that Stephanie has become the victim of a crime. The perpetrator could have either taken the missing items from the cabin since there were traces on them, or the blankets and sheets were used to wrap Stephanie's body in and transport it. However, there are no leads to follow up on. Stephanie was very popular and had no enemies. There seems to be no motive for a crime. Although Stephanie's gold watch is missing, since she often wore it, it is very likely that this is why she could not be found in the hut. Apart from that, the 70-year-old did not have any valuables, and nothing else was stolen from the cabin, which makes robbery an unlikely motive. Stephanie's phone call with her daughter and her failure to report missing in the morning were separated by just 10 hours, during which time something could have happened to her. The fact that the call was still answered in the morning also suggests that Stephanie or an alleged perpetrator must have been in the cabin at the time. The water that was boiling on the stove could have several meanings. Possibly Stephanie just wanted to make herself a cup of tea, but maybe not just for herself, but also for a guest. What the police consider more likely, however, is the theory that someone intended to burn down the cabin along with all the evidence inside. Although they didn't succeed, the investigators are still making no headway, and Stephanie Stewart's disappearance remains unsolved. Just when it seemed unlikely that any new clues would ever be found, another crime occurred nearby 4 years later. Lyle and Marie McCann went missing in July 2010 while on a road trip. The couple, who were 77 and 78 years old, were on their way from their hometown of St. Albert to Chilliwack in British Columbia. The trip should only take about 12 hours, but the two wanted to take several breaks to see the countryside. The couple was last seen at a gas station on July 3rd. Their subsequent disappearance does not initially attract attention. It is only when they fail to pick up their daughter Trudy from the airport on July 10th, as agreed, that she begins to worry and reports her parents missing. Police discover a connection to a fire they were called to on July 5th. That evening, a fire breaks out at the Minot Lake campground near the town of Edson, about 2 hours west of St. Albert. Officers find Lyle and Marie's burnt-out trailer on the scene. However, there was no sign of them or their Hyundai. They drove to the couple's house but did not find anyone there. The investigators were now able to link the missing persons report and the fire and began searching for the couple. For 6 days, they find no further clues to their whereabouts until they finally discover the couple's car nearly 30 kilometers east of Edson on July 16th. Soon after, 38-year-old Travis Vader comes into the investigators' focus. He already had a criminal record for car theft, arson of a truck, and illegal possession of firearms. As a result, a warrant had been issued for his arrest, and he was arrested in Alberta on July 19th. His sister Bobby Jo stated that her brother had behaved strangely the day after Lyle and Marie disappeared. Apart from that, however, there is no evidence linking him to the crime. Nevertheless, Travis was officially named as the main suspect and had to remain in custody from August 31st. In September of that year, police searched the property of a friend of Travis. Divers were deployed to check a pond and a septic tank. However, without success. On July 27, 2011, almost a year after the couple disappeared, another property was searched. And it is announced that it is believed that Lyle and Marie were killed on the day of their disappearance. At this point, Travis Vader is still in custody. Although the second search was also unsuccessful, he was charged with the murder of the McCanns in April 2012. On March 13, 2014, the prosecution suspended the charges again. Some see parallels between the disappearance of Stephanie Stewart and that of Lyle and Marie McCann. All three victims are elderly. The boiling water on the stove in Stephanie's case could have been put there deliberately to start a fire, similar to the case of Lyle and Marie, in which a fire was used to destroy evidence. Furthermore, Travis was known to have been in the same area at the time of Stephanie's disappearance. However, he denies having anything to do with any of the cases. He describes the investigation as a witch hunt and claims that there is no evidence against him. On October 8, 2014, Vader was found not guilty on 9 counts unrelated to the McCann's disappearance and released from custody shortly thereafter. In a later interview, he stated that the police had destroyed his life. They put me in jail for 4 years to investigate me, even though nothing had happened. He doesn't know what happened to the McCanns, but he would take care of them. The couple's bodies have not been found to date. In December 2014, Travis was arrested again and charged with the murder of Lyle and Marie. The trial begins in March 2016. There are still no bodies or concrete evidence against him. But the analysis of the cell phones of those involved seems to be enough and ultimately leads to him being found guilty of second-degree murder in September 2016 and sentenced to life in prison. Police also consider him the only suspect in the Stephanie Stewart case because his cell phone data shows that he must have been in the area. Travis continues to deny both crimes. On October 31, 2016, Judge Danny Thomas overturned the original verdict, and instead convicted Travis Vader of manslaughter. His life sentence can now be commuted after 7 years. To this day, he has not been adequately proven guilty of the crime against Stephanie Stewart. But this is not the only similar case that has occurred in recent years. On October 2nd, 2018, Connie Marie Johnson, 76, disappears. At the time, she's working as a camp cook for a group of hunters at a hunting camp near Big Fog Mountains in Idaho. The area is extremely remote, and there are no roads leading to the camp. Access is only possible via long footpaths or by horse. On October 2nd, the hunters leave the camp while Connie stays behind with her dog Ace. Connie is experienced and, as a trained park ranger, has often been in this area. On October 3rd, the hunters have contact with Connie again via radio, but the connection is so poor that they can hardly understand her. When they returned to camp on October 5th, Connie and her dog had disappeared. She was reported missing, and despite extensive searches with helicopters, no trace of her was found. A month after her disappearance, her dog Ace suddenly turned up, but without Connie. The 76-year-old remains missing to this day. Her daughter says she can only speculate about what happened to her mother, but does not believe that her disappearance was intentional. I believe she was out in the great outdoors she loved so much and something happened. The weather turned, she fell. I don't know, but I believe she was surprised. Considering the temperature, the short amount of time, the lack of signs of her, and the fact that Ace is not with her, it all points to that. But Connie's disappearance is not the only mystery that takes place that day in Idaho. On the same day, 80 kilometers away, Terrence Woods disappears. Terrence is from Maryland and studied TV production in England. He initially worked in London and was involved in the production of reality TV shows. After 5 years, he returned to the United States and started working for the Discovery Channel, where he was involved in the production of the documentary series Gold Rush. On October 5th, 2018, the 27-year-old was working on a documentary about the Penman Mine, an old, abandoned gold mine in the Oro Grande area. That morning, he had texted his father to say he was cutting his stay short by a few weeks and would be coming home earlier. He then started filming for the documentary with his team. They were shooting in a remote forest area. According to his colleagues, Terrence suddenly asked where the bathroom was and then dropped his radio and ran into the forest. The other employees say that they have never seen anyone run so fast. It looked to them as if he were running for his life. They were unable to catch up with him. Terrence Woods was never seen again after that day. To this day, it remains a mystery why he ran away and what happened to him afterwards. Terrence's father says, "They thought he fell off a cliff, but when they got there to check, my son had already arrived at the bottom and was running like a hare. I said, 'What do you mean he was running like a hare?' They said he was running so fast they had never seen anyone run so fast. You can't get lost out there because if you get lost, you'll run into a road or a house. So he made it to that road, and someone picked him up." What really happened to Terrence Woods will probably remain a mystery. His parents suspect that his colleagues know more than they are saying. But even the private detectives they hired can't shed any light on the matter. Stephanie Stewart's disappearance also remains unsolved to this day. According to a newspaper report at the time, it prompted the province to tighten security at the 128 fire lookout towers. These measures included self-defense training for fire watchers and new radios with panic buttons. Signs directing visitors to popular lookout towers were removed, and lookout towers with road access now have locked gates. Stephanie's disappearance is the subject of much discussion on social media. Some people from Alberta note that Athabasca Tower is not as remote as it is often portrayed. A little more than an hour away from it runs a very busy road, which also serves as the main access to a ski resort. Apart from that, many homeless people are said to have lived in the area, who deliberately retreated into the forests to live there. Among them were also some former inmates of the local prison, This also gives rise to the theory that one of these people entered the cabin at Athabasca Tower in search of a warm bed. Possibly a fight broke out, and the attacker murdered Stephanie and disposed of her body somewhere in the forest. If it was a homeless person, that would also explain why several pillows, a sheet, and a blanket were taken. Travis Vader was also homeless at the time of Stephanie's disappearance, but whether he or someone else had something to do with the disappearance of the 70-year-old, we will probably never know. Her family still hopes that the case can one day be solved. There is still a reward of $20,000 for information. And that's the end of today's video. What do you think happened to Stephanie? And do you think that Stephanie's disappearance is related to any of the other similar cases? Feel free to write me a comment with your opinion. This also supports this channel. If you want to support me even more, feel free to leave a thumbs up and a subscription. Thanks a lot in advance. Only with your support can I do the work I love and provide you with videos on a regular basis. This really means a lot to me. If you want, you can also follow me on Instagram or join my Discord. Otherwise, there is not much more to say. I thank you for watching and wish you a good morning, noon, or evening, depending on when you watch the video, and hope to see you again in the next video. Until then, ciao folks.